Hi everyone, welcome back to Total War Therapy. I'm Alberto, I just came back from my work and I'm ready to analyze every single unit from the Slaanesh unit roster, what they can do best, what they should avoid, so we can answer to the question if they are a must to recruit, situational or niche, or just for fun. Don't forget to subscribe if you wanna support the channel, and let's begin. Hi, I'm Alberto, I'm a real person, and here you will find the beginner's guide, the battle unit roster, tier list, ranking, and many shorts, so if you wanna support the channel, please consider to subscribe. And we can start the video with the most notorious arch-tempter of Slaanesh. I'm talking about Nekari. That he's probably one of the greatest units in the entire game because he's both a spellcaster with the lore of Slaanesh, that is both with the support spells and with offensive spells, and he's a damage dealer, not a tank because he got very little armor and it's a very easy target, so be careful of missile units or anyone that is trying to surround you, but you are very fast and in the campaign you can boost your speed till the point that you're just a storm moving all around the map, unstoppable. You have a lot of weapon strength, armor piercing damage, a lot of charge bonus, so you're perfect to tear down characters, other monsters, cavalry, but yes, try to avoid infantry, bunches of infantry, because you can get stuck there. Overall, it's the perfect option for your Slaanesh army, and in the campaign it's even better. And then, as a second legendary lord, we're gonna get Dechala with the DLC Tides of Torment. Dechala, the Denied One, is one of my favorite characters in the entire lore of Warhammer. She's a snake lady with 6 arms, each of them with a different sword, and she has little armor, as you can see, but she can deflect the arrows with her 6 swords. She's very fast with a lot of melee attack, and she's the only character in the campaign that you can equip her with 2 swords, with 2 weapons instead of 1. She got again plenty of charge bonus, weapon strength. No, she's not a spellcaster, keep this in mind, and she got many abilities. The best of them is the Whirlwind of Pleasure, where she can create a vortex that, believe me, will slash half of the unit that you are fighting with, so very powerful. In any case, I love her lore, her concept and her campaign. You should definitely give her a try. Then we have the Mask of Slaanesh, that is a legendary lord that she arrived with the DLC Tides of Torment, but you can play with her for free if you have the base game. Now, the Mask of Slaanesh, she's not a spellcaster, so again she's kinda a priest warrior, and she's great in melee, and she has these abilities that basically they boost some stats by sacrificing other stats, so you can just decide in that stage of the battle if you want to be more defensive or you want to be more offensive, if you want to replenish your vigor, or you want to be faster, and so on. And yeah, I have to say that she's great, but at the same time, yeah, she makes me feel a little uncomfortable. That's why I cannot look at her that much. That is great. It means that Creative Assembly did a really great job. And at the end we have Azazel, that is a legendary lord of Slaanesh, borrowed by the faction of the Chaos Warriors. Now, he doesn't have a proper Slaanesh faction, but I still wanted to include him here, even because you can use it as a legendary lord for your campaign. And yeah, he's basically a spellcaster with the lore of magic of Slaanesh, but also a melee specialist, a duelist, an assassin. I would not get him surrounded because he would fall very easily, but as a duelist he has very great skills, and as you can see there are, for example, the two snakes as a tail, the pincer, the sword, so each of these weapons has some effects in the campaign where you want to boost him or to upgrade him. I like it. I'm just very sorry that he doesn't have a proper Slaanesh faction. Let's start and finish with the Stirkar, the only legendary hero for Slaanesh. That it's a little sad, especially if you consider that Khorne, for example, got 3 different legendary heroes. In any case, Stirkar is both a great melee specialist and a powerful support character. It's available with the DLC Tides of Torment, and as a support character he will boost dramatically the stats of the Marauders of Slaanesh that are the lowest tier melee infantry, and this is great because at a fair price you can bring them to the late game with all the upgrades. And then as a melee specialist he will get an ability that will cause a little explosion just to disrupt the formation and flee, and he will get access to the mount of the demonic steed, that is the new snake of Slaanesh. Overall, it's a great option for your campaign and you should definitely recruit him. Now let's address together the generic lords option for the base game and for the DLCs. Let's start with the Herald of Slaanesh, that it's the only generic lord that you can recruit in the campaign, because if you want the Exalted Keeper of Secret you need to upgrade the Herald of Slaanesh till level 15, and at that point she will be granted the chance to become an Exalted Demon. In any case, she's both a spellcaster and a damage dealer, not that resistant, the armor is very low, but she gets a lot of armor piercing damage. She's very fast with a lot of charge bonus. She can get many mounts like the Demonic Steed, the Steed of Slaanesh, the Seeker Chariot and the Exalted. The Seeker Chariot is the one that you can see in the video. She can get access to the Lord of Magic of Shadows and of Slaanesh, that are both very powerful in my opinion, and she can, for example, summon a unit of Chaos Furies. In any case, it's the only option, so worth or not worthy, you need to recruit her if you don't have any other DLCs. And then we have the Exalted Keeper of Secrets, that, as I said, it's the upgraded version of the Herald of Slaanesh. Again, he will get access to the Lord of Magic of Shadows and of Slaanesh, and it's basically a lesser version of Nekari, so very fast with a lot of weapon strength, but very little armor, and I mean, a very easy target for the missile units. So be very careful about that and use it only to chase down cavalry characters and other monsters. With the first DLC, Champions of Chaos, you can get the Chaos Lord of Slaanesh. That is basically a tank and melee specialist, but mostly tank. He can get, if you have also Tides of Torment, the mount of the Demonic Steed, so the Snake of Slaanesh, that is the perfect mount for him. And yes, if you need a tank but not a spellcaster, he can be a great option. That is a way to say that, I mean, it's better a spellcaster anyway, for me at least. And then, if you upgrade your Chaos Lord to level 15, you will get the chance to turn him into a Demon Prince of Slaanesh. That, I have to tell you, it's my favorite Lord option, because it's both a flying melee specialist and a spellcaster, with a selection of spells from both the Lord of Magic of Slaanesh and Shadows. And I have to say that in this case, he took the best spells from each lore. He got not that much armor, but believe me, it's more resistant than the average Slaanesh unit. It's quite fast with a lot of melee attack and also melee defense, a huge weapon strength, and some abilities that can have an impact on your allies and your enemies. Overall, as I said, it's the best option because you have some flying capabilities, but also very good spells, and you know, someone that can fix the situation where it's needed. With the second DLC, Tides of Torment, you can get also the Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Slaanesh, that it's the spellcaster version of the Chaos Lord. So compared to the Herald of Slaanesh, he will get the mount of the Chaos War Shrine, but he will keep the Demonic Steed and the Chaos, yeah, he will get also the Chaos Steed. And yes, if you want a spellcaster a little more armored but less damage dealing, probably it's your best option. Now let's talk about all the generic heroes available for Slaanesh with the base game and with the DLCs. The first one is the cultist of Slaanesh, that she's of course a mortal, so she doesn't have all the demonic features, but she keeps the Slaanesh features, so the strider, the immunity to psychology, the devastating flanker and so on. Now, this is a powerful character more in the campaign because you can get the ability to summon up to 3 units of Daemonettes and also a keeper of secret. She can get as a mount the horse and the chaos war shrine, that is my favorite mount in this scenario with this unit, so she can be both a support character and a tank with some abilities, as we said, but over the campaign you can consider to use her also as agent to bring, to spread the Slaanesh corruption and to build some cults in the enemy's settlements. The second generic hero available with the base game is the Allure, that she's basically the hero version of the Herald of Slaanesh, so she can cast spells from the Lore of Magic of Shadows and the Lore of Magic of Slaanesh. She can get as mount the Steed, the Demonic Steed, the Seeker Chariot and the Exalted Seeker Chariot, and if you don't have a spellcaster as Lord, you should probably get a hero. With the first DLC, Champions of Chaos, you can get the hero, the Chaos Sorcerer of Slaanesh, again with access to the lore of magic of Slaanesh and Shadows. Then, instead of the Exalted Seeker Chariot, he can get the Chaos War Shrine, but also the Demonic Steed and the Chaos Steed. And we can say that compared to the Allure, he will be more tanky with more armor, but less melee attack and weapon strength. Now we can address the generic heroes that we got with the DLC Tides of Torment. Let's start with the Druki Anointed, that it's a specific hero, a great surprise, unexpected with that DLC. He will boost, but very likely, the devotees of Slaanesh, that are basically the Dark Elves that got corrupted to the power of the Prince of Perfection. And the other good thing about this hero, first he can mount the Demonic Steed, so the Snake of Slaanesh, and also the Cold One, that is basically the little dinosaur of the Lizardman. But the cool thing is that he got access to some spells from different lores of magic, not only Slaanesh, but these spells will be abilities, not spells, so he will not compete with the other spellcasters for the wins of magic. And this is great because even if your wins of magic are very low, you can still rely on his spells, even if they will be a little less powerful. And then we have the Exalted hero of Slaanesh, that is the melee version of the generic lord that we previously talked about, and it's a great melee specialist, quite tough with a good armor, very good for the standard of Slaanesh, the shield, 3 hands that I hope they are useful, the poison effect, and many different abilities that make it even more sturdy. Now we can finally talk about the melee infantry of this faction, and let's start with the Daemonettes of Slaanesh, that they are the most iconic unit of this of Slaanesh, because they symbolize all the strength and the weaknesses. They have very little armor, and this is something you have to keep in mind, because they will be very vulnerable if you use them as your front line, as your defensive melee infantry. That's why, for me, even if you are specializing your army with the demons, you have still to recruit a front line of devoted marauders of Slaanesh, especially in the early game, because you need some missile protection and a more defensive front line. They are better as support infantry because they have the magical attacks, plenty of melee attack for this tier, and also the armor piercing damage. That's why they will probably win the fight against enemy infantries that are some tier higher than them. And then they have all the Slaanesh attribute like the Strider, the Devastating Flanker that will increase the charge when they are hitting the flank or the back, the physical resistance, and they are demons, so be careful of the leadership because it will go too much down, then they will start to cause damage to themselves. Then we have the Exalted Daemonettes of Slaanesh that are just the upgraded version. They have better stats. This contact effect that is called Charmed that will reduce the melee attack of the enemy, and also the Soul Scent that is an ability that will increase the melee attack and armor piercing weapon damage, and this effect will increase with the enemies within range that will waver or rout. Then we have the Devoted Marauders of Slaanesh that they came in 3 different versions with the base game, and they are basically your mortal melee infantry. As I said, even if you are building a mostly demonic army, I still suggest you to recruit some of them as your front line, because first they have the shield that will protect them and will protect your entire army from the missile attacks, from the arrows, and then even if they have also very little armor, they are definitely more defensive than the Daemonettes, so they can stand a charge, they can stand another melee infantry tougher than them, and they have also the Slaanesh attribute, so the immunity to psychology that in this case it's probably one of the few cases in the entire roster where it's needed, because they have very little leadership, they are a low tier melee infantry, so it's good if they don't get scared by monsters. And then the Striders, so they can move all around the map, even in the water, without getting any debuff. Then we have the version with the spears that I have to say I really like the model. I really like that, I mean, the weapons are basically their hands. In any case, they have the anti-large bonus and all the anti-large attributes, so the charge defense, the charge reflection, and they will be your anti-cavalry units for the early game, in case you want to fight against a faction that will revolve mostly around horses and monsters. And as last, we have the version with the Hell Scourges that they have better defense and weapon strength than the spears, and also the poison effect that will reduce the speed and some weapon strength of the enemy. And this is basically, they have also the expert charge defense and the charge reflection, so they're great against the cavalry, but they don't have the anti-large bonus to be more offensive against them. So they are better, in my opinion, against, I mean, for your front line if you want to play with the hammer and anvil strategy, for example. Now we can move to the cavalry of Slaanesh, and we can start with the Hellstriders of Slaanesh that are mortals units, so they are not demonic, they can lose leadership without causing damage to themselves, but they get very little armor, even if they have the shield that can protect them from the 35% of missile attacks. In this, I mean, this version has the poison effect and also the anti-large bonus, so they're great against other cavalry, and I have to say that if you use them in this way, given that you have also all the Slaanesh attributes, so the immunity to psychology, the physical resistance, the strider, and so on, they're very great at that. So if there is a cavalry enemy that is trying to flank you, you can just flank them too with your cavalry, and you will definitely win the fight, even against heavier, I mean, depends how much heavier, but some more elite cavalry, I have to say. So about the cost efficiency, a very must to recruit unit. There is also the version with the Hell Scourges, that this is a quite weird unit for me, because they are a more defensive cavalry. But yeah, I mean, if you want to deal damage probably to infantry, they are better than the generic version of the Hellstriders. But overall, yeah, it doesn't change that much, and I prefer to have an anti-large cavalry rather than a melee focus, more tanky cavalry that I mean, you're not supposed to use it in that way. anyway, because I mean the armor is very little. Now let's see together the Seekers of Slaanesh that are the upgraded version in my opinion, and also the demonic version. They will still have very little armor and without the shield, very fast with a lot of charge bonus and all the Slaanesh attributes, the devastating flanker, the strider, but and they will get the armor piercing damage. So this is the main difference for me if you are looking for a more versatile cavalry that can address you know, other heavy infantry, some lords, some heroes, some monsters. They're definitely better, but you have to be more careful about their defense because they can go down very fast. In any case, they are a great option for me, definitely better than the Hell Striders, even against other cavalry. They perform quite well, so you can replace them when you have enough money to do that. And then there is the Heart Seekers of Slaanesh, that is the upgraded version, that of course they are better with I mean all the stats boosted, and they have also an ability called the Soul Scent that will increase the melee attack and the armor piercing weapon damage, and this effect will increase in intensity with the enemies that will wave or rout. Now we can talk about the Chariots that are one of my favorite categories of this roster. Let's start with the Seeker Chariots that they have a very great model, and they have the magical attacks, the poison effect, the armor piercing damage, and the bonus versus infantry. They have plenty of charge and a good armor for the standard of Slaanesh, with an impressive speed. Probably they are some of the fastest chariots in the entire game. They have all the Slaanesh attributes, so you can use them to, you know, flank the enemies and so on. And then we have the Hellflayers that I want to take them to explain you a little how to use the Chariots with Slaanesh. They have better stats and also an ability against the Soul Scent that will increase the melee attack and the armor piercing weapon damage, and this effect will increase in intensity with the enemies that will waver or rout in the range. In any case, you have to, they have a little of armor, so they are not that vulnerable, but still you have to charge the enemy, preferably from the flanks or from the back, and then you have to go away and do it again. It's called psycho charge or cyclo charge, depends how you wanna call it, and this is the best strategy. Otherwise you will feel that they are a little weak and you know, probably not the best option for your army composition, but if you know how to use them, they will be amazing. And then we have the Exalted Seeker Chariot that for me it's one of the most incredible units in this game. I already showed you in the Lords section how to use it, because it's the mount of many lords and heroes, I mean of one lord, one generic lord and one generic hero, so that's why I don't recruit it, because I have it as mount, and yeah, in any case you will get the perfect vigor and you are a single entity, so more mobile, it's easier to escape situations, and yeah, in this way it's just better than the other chariots for me. More you can do, you know, better maneuvers in case you want to address a particular unit, a particular target, and yeah, they're just perfect for me, and I have a lot of fun because when you can increase the charge bonus, the speed, and the mass in the game, they will be just unstoppable. Now let's talk about the monsters and beasts of the Slaanesh roster. Let's start with the Chaos Furies, that I have to say that since they are one of the very few flying options for Slaanesh, they are definitely effective at what they do. They are 60 in numbers, a little resilient, I have to say. They will resist more than you may think. They have magical damage, they have armor piercing damage for some reason, and then all the Slaanesh attributes. So the Strider, that, I mean, it's not that they're flying, so why should you care? And then the devastating flanker, so they will deal more damage when they are, when they are charging. overall I can suggest them also in the late game in case you are fighting, for example, against a defensive faction like the Empire, the High Hells, so you need some flying forces to address the missile infantry, the artillery and so on. And yeah, as I said, probably they will, you will sacrifice a lot of them, but you can easily recruit them, so a very good option for your early game to late game army. Then we have the spawn of Slaanesh that, this is a specific unit, and with the Dechala DLC you got also a big version that you can summon that in my opinion it's far better. In any case, they are resilient, they have the unbreakable attribute, the soporific mask, so they will be a very good support monstrous infantry, but very generic, that's why I never recruit them. But yeah, I have to admit they're not that bad, even if, I'm merciless against the reskins. And then we have the Fiends of Slaanesh that are a monstrous infantry unit, and I have to say probably one of the best units of Slaanesh, but also of the entire game, because it's very hard to take them down, even if they have very little armor, not that much compensated by the physical resistance. But yeah, overall they have the Strider, a very nice speed that, they are faster than most cavalries in this game. The devastating flanker, a very good weapon strength, armor piercing, magical attacks, the soporific mask, and yeah, you have basically to charge preferably the flanks or the back of the melee infantry, but also the cavalry. They're very versatile. You can use them in multiple tactics, but they're always useful. You can believe me, I never got disappointed by them. But they're still demons, so if they get surrounded by many units, it can be a problem because they can go down, so always support and babysit them. And now we can finally talk about the big monsters of the Slaanesh roster, and let's start with the Soul Grinder of Slaanesh, that it's probably the second best Soul Grinder in my opinion, even if it's the only one without a missile range attack. Even if the one of Khorne, I don't know if we can consider it a range attack. In any case, it's very great at its job, that is to take down, to hunt down other large entities, because this is a monster hunter, very fast with a very good armor, a melee attack and melee defense that are good, with the soporific mask, magical attacks, the anti-large bonus of course, and yes, you have basically to send it against the larger monster in the enemy army, and believe me, in most cases it will win the fight. That's why it's so good. And yes, in your late game army, it's definitely a good option to recruit. And at the end of the base game roster, we got the Keeper of Secrets, that is the most elite demon here, and basically for me it's a all talk and no action unit, because if you don't look at the health bar, you will think that he will cause plenty of destruction to the battlefield, but then when you check the health of you and of the enemy, you realize that in most cases he took more damage than it deals, so a lot of scene, a lot of drama, but nothing that much about effectiveness. And it basically has some spells that you can even upgrade and increase the number with the technology of the campaign, but they have very little armor, a shield that will protect them only by the 30% of the missile attack. It's very fast, it's true, with a lot of weapon strength and a very good melee attack, but it's elusive. It's not that easy to take if it doesn't want to be taken by missile attacks and cavalry, so on. But at the same time, it's not that strong. It needs a lot of management if you don't want to lose it, and the enemy with the high difficulty will prioritize it. So I cannot say it's a must to recruit unit, but most are more situational, but just for the spells for me. Now I will show you all the units that you're gonna get with the DLC Champions of Chaos, so you can decide whether to buy it or not. I will quickly list all the lords and heroes that we previously talked about in the other sections of the video. You're gonna get the Demon Prince of Slaanesh, that, as I said, it's a very good option because it's both a flying melee specialist and a spellcaster. Then the Chaos Lord of Slaanesh, that it's the melee version, very tough, very armored, so great if you want a tank. And then you're gonna get the Chaos Sorcerers of Slaanesh, that it got access to the lore of magic of Shadows and the lore of magic of Slaanesh, and it's a more armored version compared to the Daemonette, but less offensive. Now let's start with the units. You're gonna get the Forsaken of Slaanesh, that I have to say I'm not 100% sure you're gonna get them with this DLC instead of the base game. In any case, they are a heavy damage option for your melee infantry, less defensive than the Chaos Warriors, but I mean with better attack, and they have the Frenzy, they have still the Strider, the immunity to psychology because they have the mark of Slaanesh. I have to say that I mean, they are quite generic and they are a reskin, that's why I don't use them, but overall they are not a bad unit. Now we can move to the Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh, that they are the upgraded version of the Marauders. Now, unless you're playing with Stirkar and Dechala, that they will boost the Marauders to the point that probably you don't need the Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh. For all the other lords, I would pick them because they are definitely better, and probably better even than the Chosen, if you count the cost efficiency. And they have the shield, so good against the missile, a very high armor for that price, so all the units without the armor piercing damage will harm them very little. And the speed is a little reduced, but they get a very good melee defense, a good weapon strength, with all the Slaanesh attributes, so the physical resistance, the immunity to psychology that makes them more resilient, and the Strider, so you can deploy them with more versatility, you don't have to care about the water and so on. And then there is also a version with the Hell Scourges, that they have better defense because in this game the whips, they increase your defensive stats, and they have the expert charge defense, the charge reflection and the poison effect, so they are the best choice if you are fighting against a monster cavalry focused faction. And yeah, they are basically your anti-large upgraded version of the Marauders. Now, let's talk about the Chosen of Slaanesh, that if you followed my other videos, you know that I don't appreciate them that much, because first, they are so expensive and they need a completely different building, an advanced military building if you want to recruit them, and then because, I mean, you're paying a lot for some boosted stats that, I mean, the Chaos Warriors of Slaanesh with all the technology and the skills, the red skill line of the Lord, field, they already do their job so amazingly that you don't need the upgraded version, at least in my opinion. And in the case of Slaanesh, you're just gonna get better stats, so a little more of armor, a little more of leadership, a little more of melee defense. So overall, it doesn't change that much, you're just paying a lot more for a unit that, will do the same job and not even that much better. And there is, of course, the version with Hell Scourges that works in the same way. So they are the ultimate anti-large unit for melee infantry for this roster. But as I said, they are so expensive that you probably don't need them. You can just rely on the Chaos Warriors version. Then we have the Marauder Horsemen of Slaanesh, that it's a reskin, of course, from the Chaos Warriors. Now, they are one of the very few missile units in this roster that you're gonna take only with the DLCs anyway. And I mean, it just, if you like this kind of strategy, skirmish tactics where you want to annoy the enemy, but overall they will not make deal so much damage to justify their presence in your army. Then we have another reskin, the Chaos Chariots of Slaanesh, that are the generic Chaos Chariots but more purple. And I mean, I think they were not needed in a faction that it's already full of chariots, but this is just my opinion. In any case, they are a little more armored, but they sacrifice a little of weapon strength. They are less armor piercing, and then but they keep the Slaanesh attributes like the Strider, the Devastating Flanker, and the immunity to psychology. So if you are building a Chaos Warrior army in your Slaanesh faction, probably they can be a nice option. And of course we got the Chaos Knights of Slaanesh, another generic unit but more purple. Now, I cannot say I don't like them, because overall the Chaos Knights of Slaanesh, even if you consider the cost efficiency, they are always very good, with plenty of armor, with the shield, a lot of weapon strength, even if not armor piercing damage. And the Slaanesh version, you have to consider that they have the Strider, the Devastating Flanker, a little of physical resistance. They have the immunity to psychology, even if they definitely don't need it. So they are a good option. I mean, I have to admit it. Even if they are very expensive, they are worth to recruit in your Mortals army. And yeah, that's why for me they're just good. There is also the version with the lances that they sacrifice a little of melee defense to get a better charge bonus, a far better charge bonus. So in case you have a lot of time and you want to psycho charge the enemy, they are better than the generic version. And then we have the Chaos War Shrine of Slaanesh. If you watched all of my videos, you know what is my opinion about these units. But yeah, I have to specify that they're not that bad themselves. You can use them, for example, as mounts for your characters, and in that way they're definitely better. But if you have to use your money to get this support machine that it's quite tanky, but also a very easy target for missile attack, because it's very big and very slow, with some arguably effective abilities that will increase the leadership, and it will cause a little of damage overall around the enemies. But yes, they are definitely for me not a worth to recruit choice, and yeah, they could have just used them as mounts. And now let's see together which units you will get with the DLC Tides of Torment, so you can decide whether to buy it or not. I will quickly list all the characters that we previously talked about, and then we can focus on the units. Let's start with the Chaos Sorcerer's Lord of Slaanesh. You will finally have a Warriors of Chaos Spellcaster generic Lord for your roster. Then you're gonna get the Exalted Hero of Slaanesh, that is the melee specialist around the Chaos Warriors heroes, and then the Druki Anointed, that is also a melee specialist but with some spells that he can cast, and he can also boost with some very few abilities the elves units in this faction. Now we can start with the Slangers, that I have to say, when they announced that they were gonna get the dual swords, I was not very excited, because we were already supposed to get the Devotees of Slaanesh with the dual swords, so the anti-infantry damage, and I thought that it could be a little redundant. But at the end it turned out to be that this unit, the Slangers, are one of the best early game unit for your roster. They have basically the strength of a Slaanesh unit and of a Beastman unit, so they have the immunity to psychology, the Strider, and also the Primal Fury, that will increase some of their stats when the leadership is higher than 50%. Another, the Pleasure Through Pain, that will increase their stats when they take damage, and they are very fast. They are they are many in number, because they are 120. And then they have the anti-infantry damage, a scattered formation, so they are a hard target for for artillery, for spells and so on, and then they have a little of physical resistance, the Mark of Slaanesh, the Vanguard deployment, so I have to say that they are the perfect filler and mid shield for your Slaanesh army. Then we got the Devotees of Slaanesh, that they came in two different versions, the one with the dual swords, so the anti-infantry damage, and the second that it's the same, they just sacrifice a little of melee attack and melee defense, but believe me, really a little, to get also the crossbows, that will not be armor piercing like the Dark Shades of the Dark Elves, for example. So you have to keep in mind that they are not the strongest missile option for your roster, considering that you can use the online recruitment in the campaign. In any case, they are something between the Chaos Warriors and the Daemonettes, because they are more offensive, better at dealing damage than the Chaos Warriors, but compared to the Daemonettes, they are more defensive, they have a little of armor, a better physical resistance, and more sturdy in any case. So you can just build your army around them, you can use a Druki Anointed to boost them, and overall they are not a bad unit, but I have to say not that necessary. And then, as I said, we got the Devotees of Slaanesh with the crossbows, that I was expecting something more. I'm truly sorry about that, even because if you play with Nakari, for example, you can just seduce one faction of high health and borrow their archers that are definitely better. The good point about the Devotees of Slaanesh with crossbows is that at least they are good melee fighters, so if they engage in melee, they will definitely not go down, but yeah, if you're looking for a missile infantry, I would just use the mechanic of Slaanesh to get the archers from the High Hells, from Grand Cathay, or all the other factions. And as cavalry, we got the Pleasure Seekers, that I have to say right now, they are probably the best cavalry in the entire game. They are even better than the Rot Knights from Nargol, that I thought they were, unbeatable. They have so much charge and speed that multiplied for each other, they create this devastating charge that can tear apart not only the melee infantry, the generic melee infantry, but also the anti-large melee infantry. That it's crazy, why should you take an anti-large melee infantry if they cannot stand the charge of this monstrosity? In any case, they are just perfect. They have a good armor, they have the shield, the speed, that is, they are faster in campaign than a flying unit. Melee attack and melee defense are terribly strong, a lot of weapon strength with armor piercing damage, and they are even, a good amount of units. I thought that they could have made lesser in numbers, so at least you have some weaknesses, because in this way you definitely don't have any. The devastating flanker, the physical resistance, the feasting on fear, so even the regenerating ability, it's just insane. I really think they should debuff them, because otherwise it's too much. It's too much. Then here we are with the Champions of Slaanesh, that are a very unique unit in this game, because they are basically melee infantry, even if they count as large entities, but believe me, they are very little, very tiny, and that's why they can easily going inside the enemy formation and attack their own target. They have a little of shield, because they can deflect arrows with their many hands, the magical attacks, the anti-infantry armor piercing damage, and all the Slaanesh attribute like the devastating flanker, the strider, the physical resistance, and so on. Now, as I said, they are very good because first, they deal plenty of damage, so if you fight against any armored heavy units, and even the light ones, they will win definitely the fight. And then they are exceptionally fast, for infantry, we can say, and you can boost it with in the campaign, and you can, as I said, sneak inside the enemy formation as you prefer. So with all these attributes, I have to say that they are definitely a must to recruit unit. And at the end we got the Praeton, probably the poorest addition to this DLC. That was a very great one. I really dislike this unit, and I was excited when they announced that it was coming to the game, so I'm sad about it. It's the only flying monster. elite flying monster without a breath ability, and then I'm not sure what it's supposed to do. It's not that great against the bunches of infantry, and at the beginning the price was higher. They reduced it because they realized that it was not that good. Then against other monsters, I mean, it doesn't win all the time, and especially against the flying cavalry, it will lose the fight in most of the cases. He got the poison effect, the anti-large bonus, the frenzy ability, another ability that will decrease the melee defense to do more melee damage reflection. That is great if you want to sacrifice a little of resistance to basically deal more damage to the enemy. And then, I mean, many stuff that I don't think they make it worthy. So definitely not a good addition to your roster, and I'm very sorry about that. Now we will list all the Regiments of Renown units, and I will tell you which is the difference between them and their generic version. Let's start with the Princes of Perfection, that is the elite unit of devoted marauders of Slaanesh with spears, that they will get the soporific mask that will decrease the melee defense and melee attack of the enemies, the expert charge defense, so they can brace even against the melee infantry like the Wrathmongers that have a very good charge, and the perfect vigor, so they will never get tired. That is good for the long battles. Then we have the Mirror Guard, that is a special unit of Chaos Warriors with a unique model that I truly appreciate. They are shielded, have magical attacks, immunity to psychology, physical resistance, and an ability that will increase the melee defense of all the characters that are within range. Overall, a great defensive unit. Then we have the Bringers of Beguilement, that is the Regiment or Renown version of the Exalted Daemonettes of Slaanesh, and they will get only the perfect vigor, so as I said, they will never get tired. That's why they are very good for the long battles. Then we have the Riders of the Mighty Serpent, that is the Regiment or Renown version of the Marauder Horsemen, and they are also available for Norska. They will basically get a better range attack because they have in addition the magical damage and anti-large ammunition, and then a couple of abilities. The Rage that will increase some stats with the time spent in melee, and another, the Battle Songs, that will increase the leadership and the ability to cause fear to all the allies in range. Then we have the Sibilant Slaughtercade, that is a mix because you got the Chariot from the Chaos Warriors but pulled by the Seekers of Slaanesh, so you get the best from both factions. You have the Vanguard deployment, the poison effect, and an ability that will increase some of your stats following the number of the enemies that will fall because of you. Then we have the Heralds of Excess, that is the Regiment or Renown version of the Seeker Chariots. That is quite weird because you're gonna sacrifice some armor and the charge bonus to get better stats and an ability that will allow you to regenerate. After that we have the Eternal Entourage, that is a special version of the Heart Seekers of Slaanesh, that you will get a couple of abilities more, the Perfect Vigor, so good for long battles, and an ability that will increase the stats of all the characters that are within range. Then we have the Pleasure Guard, that is the Regiment or Renown version of the Champions of Slaanesh, that they will get the Unbreakable attribute, so they will suffer no drop of leadership, they cannot rout, and the Unyielding Assault, so you cannot reduce their melee attack with any ability. Then there is the Scourge of Arden, that is the special version of the Praeton, that it's already a not very good unit, and this one just get the Vanguard deployment, the Strider, and basically it performs better in the forest, unlike all the other monsters. And at the end we got the Marquis of Masochism, that is a special version of the Skipper of Secrets, that will get a selection of spells not only from the lore of Slaanesh but also from the lore of Shadows, and then an additional ability that is the Feasting on Fear, that will allow the unit to regenerate its hit points with the enemies that are wavering or running away. Thank you for following me, and see you very soon.